Hi, welcome to Wednesday. I'm going to talk today about a restaurant that I did years ago. Actually, it was probably 45 years ago that I did this place, and it was an old restaurant. At one point, it had been a place where it was like a stagecoach hotel or a place where, going across country, people could pull in their horse and wagons and stay for the night. And it was, for back then, I thought it was fairly large, big kitchen, nice sitting area in the front, rooms upstairs and a balcony. Actually, if I think about it, when you watch old time um, cowboy movies, it's pretty similar to that. There was no bar with a naked lady hanging over the back of it. But again, I thought, it's probably not too far away. So I got a call from the man that had owned that place probably for 30 years. It had actually been in his family for over 50 years. He was not, the family was not the original family, but they were there a long time. And he had had a business in town, and then his wife was such a good cook and baker that they decided to open up this inn, whatever you wanted to call it. So they did, and then when that stopped, they turned it into a restaurant. The upstairs rooms they used as an office, as a storage room. So when he called me, he said, and then now keep in mind, this is like 45 years ago. People didn't talk about this like they do now. And when he called, and that surprised me being a man. Usually women make these calls back then, not men. Not so much now. Men call now all the time. But back then it was usually a woman. He says, well, I don't know how to talk about this. He says, but I'm getting spooked in my own place. There's something going on here, and I don't know what. And I got a barn in the back where I have a couple horses, and they're spooked. And he said, I don't know. He says, the place just doesn't feel good to me. Can you come out? I said, yes. This was in a small town. Do you remember the way the town looked on Ghost Whisper with a bunch of little stores and a nice little cityscape and all of that? If you're local, think of Medina, downtown Medina with all the little shops and everything like that. It was not Medina, but it was similar to that. And it's actually funny because there is one of these type of restaurants in Medina, but it wasn't Medina. So go out there, and this is when I was doing all this by myself. Ted wasn't coming with me then. He was actually working his real job. And went out there, and I went out on a day that they were closed, which anytime I do any kind of a public place, I try to do it on a day that they're closed. And went out there, and him and his wife were there. And it was almost reverse. He's telling me that he says, I saw somebody in the hall upstairs. They were all dark, but I saw him up there. And he said, and I keep kitchen things out of the corner of my eye, and my stuff is missing. And she says, meaning his wife, she says she hasn't touched it, but who else would take it? Where's it at? And the whole time she's just smiling, his wife, and just shaking her head like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So I finally said to her, I said, you remember, I says, a couple of weeks ago when you went into the kitchen to start the day off, I says, and you went to put your apron on, and it wasn't there, it was hanging on the broom closet door. And it actually wasn't a broom closet, it was a little room that had the hot water tank in, and like a stationary tub and a bucket with a mop in it to wash floors. She looked at me, she goes, how did you know that? He told you that. And he looked at me and he says, I didn't know that happened. And I said, okay, I says, let me give you another example. I said, do you really think about a month ago that you left the cream out on the counter and that when you came in the morning it had spoiled? And she just stared at me. She said, well, no. She says, I couldn't believe how I did that. And I figured I was just so tired I didn't think about it. And I said, okay. I said, what about when you go down and it was a root cellar, dirt floor, not even very much of it had floor on the top of it. It was a very small little area. And I think back in the day they probably used that to put, potatoes and carrots and stuff in for the winter. And I said, when you went down there, I said, last summer, I said, you come running up the steps. I says, you went down there to put some crates down there, and when you came back up, I said, and whatever you saw down there, you were running up the steps. And she looked at me. She goes, yes. She goes, okay. She says, tell me what I saw. I said, a snake. Well, that didn't. She was right on board because her husband didn't even know she had seen a snake down there because he's more afraid of snakes than she was. We went through the whole place, found who was there, gave them their names, their dates. The one person was actually a pretty prominent person when he was alive in this town. And at one point, this place was actually used for, as the ghost said, a house of pleasure. That a lot of times, that a lot of people, cowboys, would come in and spend the night there to do more than sleep. And so there was one of these ladies still there, and she was something. Um, she little rowdy, but she was okay. And she says, I try to entice him, but he just won't pay any attention. What happened? The man that was there, that was spooking the horses and messing around in the barn behind the restaurant, he would not go to the light. I tried everything I could. And, back then I wasn't an old lady. And so it was a little harder to get people to cross over if they were older than me. And the bottom line is, I can't grab them and throw them in. I can make the light, but they still have free will. They have to be able to walk in on their own. And I said, fine. I says, if you're not going to go, I can't make you. I said, but we're going to go around and put protection up on the doors. I said, and you'll never be able to get out of here. I said, you pretended, or you had something to do with the town. You were not the mayor, but you thought you were from the way you acted. I said, so I guess you're just going to have to go in other places or stay here. And oh, no, he wasn't going to stay here. I said, okay then. So he left. And I didn't hear anything for quite a while. Then around 1980, I got a phone call. And this guy says, and it was another man, which keeps surprising me. This man said to me, I bought a restaurant. And he said where it was. And I said, the old inn with the barn in the back? Oh, lady, you're good. I says, no, I'm not good. I says, I've been there. I said, what happened to? And I said the name of the previous owners. He said, no, he said, the restaurant did really, really well. And then she wanted to move to Florida because it was nice and warm. She didn't like the winters anymore. So I bought it. And I said, okay. I said, and he goes, I don't know what's going on in here. He says, but people are coming in here and they're talking about seeing stuff in the bathrooms. And I said to him, what did you do when you got that restaurant? I said, did you paint? What did you do? What kind of, did you improve it? Did you take out walls? What did you do? He said, no, I didn't do any of that. He says, we did paint where we could. He says, not on the logs, but on the wood part. He says, we did paint that. He says, we fixed up the bedrooms upstairs, and we are actually using them if somebody wants to come and spend the night. And he said, and because Western themes are so popular now, he said, we have a mechanical bull in here now that people can ride. I said, like like in the Rhinestone Cowboy or Urban Cowboy? He goes, exactly like that. And those movies came out 80, beginning of the 80s. So I says, then how's that going? He says, we got a younger crowd in here, a little rougher crowd. He said, but he says, something's not right. He says, he says, I'm missing stuff. He says, I think somebody's stealing money from me. I says, is it still a restaurant? And he said, more of uh, appetizers, maybe a hamburger, something like that. I said, okay. And I said, when you got this place, I said, were there little seeds over the top of the doors that you took down? And he said, yeah. He says, the first couple ones I took down, I thought they were dried bugs. And I said, yeah, okay. Now, while I'm talking to him, I see a male ghost standing, well, to his back, but to the side a little bit. And I could not believe it. It was the ghost that would not go the last time I was there. And he's just standing there with his arms crossed like this, just grinning from ear to ear. And I'm thinking, good golly, I'm going to have to deal with him again. So went out there, and sure enough, he was there. Now we had a couple more modern ghosts now, and they were very talkative. Sometimes they won't say a whole lot, and then sometimes it's like somebody dropped a quarter in their ear and they just don't shut up. And turned out that the new bartender that he got was not so much stealing money, but he had a buddy that was coming in the back door at almost closing time and giving him bottles of liquor. Or when his friends would come, they would pay for one drink but get two or three. So that's stealing. And so that bartender was absolutely stealing. And this guy absolutely hated that mechanical bull. He said, are these people crazy getting up on there and trying to do that? He said, every chance I get, he says, I try to dismantle it or so it won't work. He says, I've already gone downstairs or in the back hallway and taken it was a fuse box with the screw in fuses, taken the fuse out. And I looked at the owner and I said, the fuses were taken out of your box? He said, yes, and everybody says they didn't do it. I said, okay. So it came down to this. Got all the information, got everything they needed. Everybody was going to go to the light except this man. He still wasn't going to go to the light. And I said, you couldn't get in here when the other people were here. He said, I know. He says, and I tried. And I said, so when did you figure out that you could get into it? He said, oh, as soon as I saw it changed and these people came in, he said, I figured I'd be able to get in. He says, and it was easy. I just came right in. And I says, where have you been? He said, look at all the little places around here. He says, I can create a problem wherever I go, which was true. And I said, do you want to go now? And he said, let me think about it. And I says, well, you just got as long as for me to let these other three people go. He said, I'll tell you who I miss. He says, I wish the lady that gave pleasure was still here from the last time you were here. And I looked at him and I said, seriously? You don't eat anything, you don't drink anything, you don't have to sleep. All you do is need human energy to keep going. Don't tell me that that was an extracurricular activity that you can do when you're dead. And he didn't answer me. I don't even want to think about that. And I said, well, if you go to the light, you might find her. And he said, oh. He says, that's a good idea. I think I will do that. So he did cross over. And believe it or not, these people had it for almost 30 years. And didn't I get another call from that place about 30 years later? The seeds had been taken down. The mechanical bull was gone. Of course, that was just a phase at the time. But they had taken down the seeds again. Went back out. There was only a couple there this time, but it was enough where customers were aware of them. And let's face it, you can go to a restaurant, you can stay at a hotel, and it can be beautiful and it can have everything you want, but if it just feels creepy to you, you are not going to go back. And that's exactly what was happening with the brand new owners. They had people coming in that liked the food and raved about the place, but they never came back. And that's all fine and well, but you're not going to have a good business if you don't have repeat customers. So this is the case that I did then. And this is a good example of I only get called back when the seeds are taken down. If those seeds had been left in place, I would have never, ever been called back to this place. So that was my restaurant story and my restaurant case, actually. Anybody that has any ghosts, earthbound spirits in their house this week, there is a full moon this Saturday on the 27th. So if you've got anything in your house, this is the week you're going to know about it. And the next Zoom will be on March 12th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am calling back people. It's still taking me forever. Ted and I finally got our COVID shots today, so hopefully I'll be able to start doing houses again. But if you want to know if something's in your house sooner than later, try to get on a Zoom. The last couple of times I was on with people, they actually had ghosts in their house that had been murdered. It was surprising to me. If you're in the area, I will be at the Goddess Elite on March 14th, Sunday, from 1 to 4 in the afternoon. So come on out and see me. And we will do another case next Wednesday. Thanks very much. Be safe. Have a good week.